Where'll you be going?
Texas?
Damn, son, where'd you find this?
Go on, make it happen.
And now here's Steve and Michelle.
Live from Dripping Springs, welcome to Mallet and Michelle. I am Michelle Lewis, Queen of Sass, and this is Steve Mallet, Mr. Rule Follower. Together, we keep it real.
Are we
One
really live, though?
Argument at a time. Yes, we are. And then we also have Carlisle Kennedy joining us today.
Carlisle Kennedy is joining us in the studio.
For sure. But I just want to say one quick note. I want to dedicate this show to the late, great Marshall Kirkendall.
Yes.
Wonderful man. We actually had him scheduled to come on in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And
he said, "Don't make me wait that long. You don't know if I'll be around that long."
he said
he said that?
He said to me, he said, I don't buy green bananas. I never buy green bananas, meaning
Because
live
you
every
never
day.
know how many days you got left.
That's right.
Yep.
So
He was a great man and full of so many good stories, and the way he told stories was amazing, wasn't it? It was like listening to a book on tape every time he opened his mouth. He was really, really a great man.
yeah, it was. He was, and I have real regret for not getting him on a little sooner. He was on 2 previous episodes, so go back and listen to those. He believed in us way back when.
He did.
So,
And he called you Hammer
yep.
and me Steve.
And I'm Steve.
Let's thank our sponsors.
Yes, absolutely. Nomic Power Solutions.
Backup Power Generation, Jovi Belterra, 55-plus community,
South Star Bank.
and the Mallet Integrity Team, Real Estate
Estate Team,
Professionals,
which
of which
Carlisle
is now a part.
Yay.
Can you believe it?
So exciting.
We probably not as excited as us that
Really?
you trusted
I don't
us to
know.
come onto the team.
I am so excited to have another girl on the team that I can just we can gang up on Steve and beat him up in the
God,
hallway.
geez, not more of
Trip him.
that. Yeah.
We can trip him in the hallway.
Yeah, we could trip him in the hallway.
do it.
You know what? When our glasses are dirty, we can use a shirt and we can get it.
Poncho shirts have glass cleaners, folks, just in case you know. It's a fashion statement.
Is it?
It is a fashion statement.
I didn't know that. When I'm looking for shirts, I didn't know to look for glass cleaner.
I'm
in my
actually here
shirt.
for it. I think it's a pretty cool idea.
You're here for
Yeah,
it?
she said, yeah, you can tell you're old when you have glass cleaners built into your shirt. So. Stories today. Our
Stories.
guest, Jay Miseli.
yes,
he's
wow.
a former Army colonel. I was introduced to him through Javier Castaneda, whose wife, Yasmin, has been on the podcast.
Yes.
And
Origin, Mexico.
Super interesting guy, West Point grad, 29 years in the Army. So he's going to come in here in a little bit and tell us all about what he's got going on and his history.
I didn't have to do a deep dive stalking of him because he's all over.
Yeah, he's a big deal.
He's
sounds
kind of a
like.
big
Yeah.
deal, for
Yeah.
sure.
So in the news, you've probably heard that Donald Trump was talking about the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah.
And suggested that maybe we should change the name to the Gulf of America.
Yes.
What do you think about that?
I think it's a great idea because I think it's a power move against the current administration, which by the time this airs, it will no longer be.
Oh, hallelujah.
And
6 days.
yeah, 6 days. It is a power move because they ban drilling in the Gulf of Mexico, and so if he changes it to the Gulf of Americas, just
We can
kaboom!
put more
I don't know.
wells in there?
It's just all my TikTok knowledge.
which is all true.
Soak
if it's
it
on
up.
TikTok, it is
It
true.
is true. It is true.
Did you see that Governor Abbott, shortly after Trump said that, suggested that, no, let's change it to the Gulf of Texas?
Oh,
I thought that was a pretty smart
but also
idea.
How would Florida
Mexico.
feel about that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But Mexico came out and said something. It's been known on old maps as something else. Do you know what that was?
Yeah, I saw that. I didn't write it down, and it was in one of the articles I read. Here's a couple things about that. It's actually a pretty complex process to rename a major geographical feature that touches a bunch of countries. There's some organizations that have to agree to that, and of course, the countries that are involved also have to agree to that name change. So I'm not sure Mexico would agree to that, but the U.S. Board on Geographic Names is the organization in the U.S. that when Biden changed the name of it's now Denali. What was it before? Mount McKinley to Denali in Alaska. The U.S. Board of Geographic Names was the one that oversaw that change, but they don't oversee changes in international geographical names. In 2012, a member of the Mississippi legislature proposed a bill to name the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. So this little rumor's been around for a while to change it to the Gulf of America.
I like Gulf of Michelle.
I bet you do.
Yeah, the Michelle waters.
Will you go down there and fix it when all those wells blow up?
I will say I will wash baby ducks in Dawn dish soap.
Do a photo op?
Happily.
I will happily. I'll be the official duck washing person of.
I was reading an article in the USA Today, and they were talking about all this stuff about could it be named the Gulf of America. And in the middle of the article, USA Today said, could Donald Trump name it the Gulf of Trump? Which is nobody. Have you heard anybody say that, Carlisle?
No, I have not.
Well, so the USA Today did talk about gas.
As if his ego is not big enough.
But the whole point of this is nobody has suggested that. They wrote a whole paragraph on that a president can't name something after himself. You have to be dead for 5 years before something can be named after you.
Oh.
And I was like, but nobody suggested that but you, USA Today. You wrote an article about something you came up with. Right?
True.
So anyway, it's going to be interesting to see if he changes it or not. But I'm all for Gulf of America.
I think Gulf of America is pretty cool. Well, what is in the news right now that everyone is talking about and praying about and worrying about are these California fires. It is scary. I know by the time this airs, but within the next couple of days, they're expecting hurricane force winds. It could get worse. I am actually leaving for California Thursday.
Oh, that's right. San Diego, though, right?
I'm going to San Diego, and
I'm sure there'll be smoke down there.
Nope. The word on the street is because the Santa Ana winds are so strong right now, it's actually the skies are quite beautiful. So it's just awful. But let's think about this for a second. I don't know if you remember the Bastrop fires that happened.
I do.
The Wimberley fires that we had last year. They actually kind of hit really close to us. It was kind of scary in that sense. But let's say you had 10 minutes to evacuate your home, and that was all the notice you were given. I did see something on the Tik Tok yesterday. Actually, it was on the news. That a lot of people that were not home when the fire started, they were at work and they could not get back in.
They didn't even have a chance to get back.
No, they didn't know. They didn't know this was all happening, and the origin of these fires. I'm hoping that we'll start to figure out what's going on. But let's say 10 minutes. Okay, so this is what you're supposed to prioritize. Obviously, people and pets. For sure. I'm not leaving.
That should go without saying,
well, and
right?
people have been kind of chastising people about, oh my gosh, I can't believe you left your dogs. But they were at work. They were at work and they were trying to get back I saw this one reunion of this man after his house is decimated.
I saw that.
Oh, yeah. With his little dog.
Yes, and he's just jumping up and down with that little dog. Oh, my gosh. So the second thing is important documents, which IDs, passports, social security cards, all of those are replaceable. But what a nightmare it is if you don't have your ID and you don't have your passport and your social security cards. This one I thought was kind of strange. They said your financials. Most everything is kind of available online.
Digital, yeah.
But, I mean, you knew if you have a little book that you have your passwords in there, you probably should grab that as well. And then your legals. And now I want to ask you this question. Do you need is that one of the things you should grab,
like
or your deeds and your titles? I know your wills, right? But you can make all that.
You should grab your wills because usually.
But all that's available except the wills.
You can put it all in the cloud, like in theory, I guess.
But let's say like you're 70, 80 years old, right? Sure. Or Meemaw and Peepaw, and they don't really have everything up in there, and I'm a paper person. I like paper stuff. So can you get your deeds and your titles? Okay, so that's all replaceable.
All that's usually recorded against the property, and you can just get with the title company and they can pull it. But wills are different, though, because most of the time they're just signed and you stick them in a safe somewhere. You can't put them online, but then if you die, somebody that's living has to know where to go find them.
Absolutely. Well, I also have seen videos of the safes that they said were fireproof safes that they are melted, but some of them have survived, and the firemen are helping these people once they present their ID. They're helping them get in.
One of the things that has blown me away is how hot these fires are. They're so they're burning.
It's like lava.
Fireproof safes. Yeah. It's because usually in a wildfire, it'll move through a house pretty quickly and the house will burn, but a lot of it's left standing because the fire moves through so quick. These things are just engulfed for hours. Yeah.
Well, again, you're going to talk about medications. That's not only for humans, but for also your pets, your electronics, your chargers, your laptops, etc. An emergency kit, which is interesting. So first aid, water, snacks, flashlight, also sentimental items that cannot be replaced. Photos. See, that's the thing I would go for first.
Too.
I would go for the photos, the small mementos, those kind of. I would immediately. I remember when the Bastrop fires were happening, I was like, oh, I have some of my things in bins. That's probably one of the first things I would grab is that cash and credit cards, obviously. Who has cash anymore? And clothing. I saw an interview with this lady, and she said, I have lost everything. I have my children here, but I am wearing other people's clothes. I don't feel like myself.
I saw a guy and he said he was grabbing a lot of those things you just mentioned. And he goes, I grabbed a half a dozen T-shirts, but I didn't grab any pants and I didn't grab any underwear and I didn't grab any shoes. So I was walking around in a fresh T-shirt with flip-flops on.
Yeah.
But it's like, if you got 10 minutes, 10 minutes seems like a pretty long time until you're running around your house looking and trying to decide, what should I throw in the car right now before I go?
That's true.
It goes by so fast.
Well, in theory, if you think about it, a house catches on fire, that house is on fire, and people grab what they can, but that house, they can go to their friend's house, their sibling's house, their whatever house. In this situation, all of them are burning.
Yeah.
All of them.
So they don't even have
everything's on fire.
Like I could go to my brother's house and it's like a home to me, or my mom's house. It's like home, right?
It's true. You can't go down to the neighbor's house and go, hey, can I camp out here for the night?
Can I borrow some clothes?
Well, I'm going to say something that's going to go way over your head. I know it is, but the real heroes right now, aside from the firefighters in the California disaster that's going on, is Heidi and Spencer Pratt. I don't know if you've been following this, but let me
Right
tell
over
you,
my head.
Spencer he's a early 2000s The Hills.
Laguna Beach.
Laguna Beach. Yeah, they were reality stars, but he has been calling out the BS. She had a hit song back before, so people are now streaming it again to try to help them get money. He's like, look, not all celebrities have money. Like they have 2 well-adjusted children. They're living in a rental house right now. Wow. And he's just he's using his platform right now for good, not evil. And, he's not like the Kim Kardashians where they have the money to hire private firefighters to protect their
for $2,000 an
Yeah,
hour.
Paris Hilton was like, don't worry, we got all the art taken out.
Oh yeah! Whoa!
Jeez.
Thank goodness! Thank you. But
Got the Monet.
shout out to Spencer Pratt. For using his platform correctly, like how he should be using. And he went back to the rubble of his home, and he was so excited that he found this container, which was a cast iron skillet of some sort or drum that they made hummingbird feeder out of. And he was like, can you believe we found, and it was like the whole house is just in rubble, and he found this one thing that was just precious to him. It's like you just never know when you think about things that you're going to grab. And I've seen interviews of people saying, why didn't I grab this or why didn't I grab that? Well, you know what? If your wife or your husband or your kids are sitting right next to you, grab the most important thing.
Yeah. So. Once your family's taken care of, and then your pets, all the other stuff, honestly, it's just stuff. You want to protect as much of it as you can, but at the end of the day,
but I do
people
I
are
do
the
get
most
it.
important
I do get the idea of you're wearing somebody else's clothes. I think it was Heidi yesterday. She posted something. She was at Marshall's and she's like, "Oh, this is a cute sweater," and then she's in Marshall's and she's like, I just miss my stuff. I know I just miss my stuff, and so I can.
Yeah,
I can.
It's got to be traumatic. I've never had to go through that, but it's got to be traumatic.
So we got to pay attention, and I know there's a lot of little garble goo on the internet right now. But we are in the Texas Hill Country. We obviously don't have those Santa Ana winds, but cut your brush back. We're not as regulated as they are in California, and you can cut those cedars, and you can cut that underbrush.
That's right.
So
and do a burn pile when it's raining so that you can get rid of all that brush so it doesn't go up like a bomb.
Well, the problem is we have cedar here, so much cedar, and so people cut it and then it sits in piles, right? And it dries. If that catches on fire, it burns so hot and so fast, all the oil in it.
Yeah, it goes off like a bomb.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. I have a story, and I'm not sure how to feel about this. Did you watch that movie on Netflix called Afraid? It's a new movie, and it's Afraid, and the letters in the middle AI are red, so it's a movie about AI. It's basically this family gets this AI thing that comes into their house.
Oh, I've seen the previews for it. A woman, right?
Oh, is it a robot?
It's a robot.
Yeah.
It doesn't move, but it sits on a counter. It's like a giant Alexa, but it basically takes over their life and makes them servants of her. Of this AI.
Oh.
So I won't want a big spoiler alert on that, but there's 2 companies that have just rolled out AI technology that you wear all day that listens to everything you say, everything you do.
You mean like this?
Well, yeah,
My phone?
yeah, sort of. But this does it intentionally with the idea that it's going to track your conversations, give you summaries of what you said and a to-do list of things that you need to get done based on the words that have come out of your mouth.
It's going to shame you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. There's 2 companies. Which is BEAI, is a little yellow bracelet that you wear around your wrist, and it listens to everything. It is on all the time. I know.
It's going to know where the bodies are buried. It's going to know all the things.
No. Mine will quit after the couple of days. They're like, we get you.
Yeah.
We're done.
Pull this up on the internet here. It's OMI.
On the big screen?
Yeah,
Okay, what?
on the big screen. OMI is the other. This one's being billed as a personal assistant. OMI. Just search that and see if it comes up.
It's not OMI, it's OMAI.
Right there.
Right?
Top.
Okay. Thought to action.
Yeah.
Did you say
look
tot?
at this picture. It's this little like button thing that sticks on the side of your head.
What?
That listens to everything you do or say. Now, there's some legal things that are being talked about
How
here.
much is it?
Actually, that one is
$89.
It's $89. So my question for you 2 is, if something that advanced is that cheap,
Oh, God.
who's the product? What's the product? The product is us. They're going to be
Every
getting
day.
all of our information and selling it all over the place.
Don't forget you have blood work today, Meemaw.
Yeah.
French
But
girl
look, how
likes
creepy
you.
is that looking?
That's too much.
It makes this guy look like Frankenstein or a cyborg or something.
Well, you
but-
wouldn't want to even be near him.
No, I wouldn't. But from a legal standpoint, if you're sitting on the left side of this guy because it's on his right temple and you don't know that you're being recorded, I think in Texas you could do that, but in other states you got to know you're being recorded.
Yeah, because Texas is a one-party state, but that's just weird.
So the way they're getting around this is saying we don't actually record it. We're just taking the data that we hear and digesting it and making a list, and
I don't
it's not
trust it.
safe. I know. Yeah.
That's weird. I don't like that.
I'm to the point now where I'm starting to think just because a technology exists, that doesn't mean we should accept it, right?
It says Omni will answer, knowing everything about you. Oh, hell no. I don't even want to know everything about me.
know.
I'm good.
I don't even want to know. Like, I don't.
I lock those things away for a reason. I don't need
I'm even surprised at the crap that comes out of my
Yeah.
mouth sometimes. I don't.
You know, but if this stuff would have come out 20 years ago, there's no way anybody would accept it. But they're making this idea that you would be surrounded by AI that listens to you 24/7 an acceptable thing.
Do you remember when the Furbies came out? The Furby?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And you remember
Yeah,
it
and they would
recorded
get-
a whole meeting in Japan or whatever?
No.
It was the company that made it. I could be very off on this story, but it's generally.
That's okay.
and-
We make up stuff
Okay,
all the time.
okay. Let's go with this. I'm going to act like I know what I'm talking about. It recorded like secrets
Really?
and it revealed them because that's what it would do. Same thing. Unknowingly could record
Yeah.
what the codes are for the new,
God, geez.
like think about that.
Yeah, think about that. If you were sitting next to somebody, if I whispered to you, so you got this Ami AI thing on, and I reach over to Carlisle and I say, Michelle is blah, 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 blah.
She's a bitch.
And the AI is going to repeat that back to you later because it's going to hear it. There's no secrets anymore.
No.
Oh, see, mine would quit. I'm telling you, mine would quit.
Yours would
Mine would be
break
like,
down.
I'm out.
The internet is broken.
You
Michelle
crazy.
broke it.
You crazy. Yeah. Well, speaking of AI and everybody listening to you, you know that this whole TikTok ban has the universe in an uproar right now. And
do you do TikTok?
I've briefly, not like committed to it, but
Okay.
people send me
Okay.
videos.
So in the hierarchy
I don't
here,
make
it's
them.
me. I'm not on TikTok at all. You're kind of a median.
and I'm going to
TikToker.
be a TikTok refugee.
And Michelle is a TikTok expert and now refugee.
I'm going to be a refugee. So there is a reason for the ban. The ban is, the whole national security concern. Blah, 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 blah. ByteDance owns TikTok. They're trying to get them to sell off that portion because of these security concerns. Yeah,
three
right.
times fast.
Apparently, the apps won't support it anymore. So if there are any bugs, it won't support it. I don't know, whatever. But arguments against the ban, free speech, which is why I find things on TikTok that I won't find anywhere else. Economic impact, which there's a lot of people, the TikTok influencers that make money off of TikTok. The people also say there was lack of evidence. Skeptics claim there's no concrete proof of data misuse or malicious intent by TikTok, which I think is kind of funny. They're saying China is stealing your information. I've seen really funny videos of Chinese guys going, "Hello, I have been your TikTok spy for the last 2 years," and "Hello, Michelle from Texas," that kind of thing. And then this global perception, the ban might strain international relationships and alienate younger users, which I think actually is true. It's interesting.
I think they will move on to something else.
So,
Okay,
fast
so
your
what
head will
is
spin.
the something else? Go.
Well, so I was getting my nails done last week, and there was 2 girls that go to DS high school, and I know one of the girls' mothers, and they were sitting there talking about how it's leaving, it's going away, and one of them, and these are like cheerleader girls, like like very social,
16, 17 years old.
and they were like, I'm actually kind of glad because I'm quite addicted to it. The girls were saying that. And
Well, Kendall and I were joking around about it. Kendall told me, my daughter, she said, "How the hell am I going to raise this baby without TikTok?" We were joking around, and I said, "Does this mean I'm going to have to pay attention to your father now? Like, what is going on?"
Here's my thing and conspiracy theory. The thing about TikTok that I don't like is it gives there goes the tinfoil hat. It gives the Chinese government direct access to millions and millions of U.S. people to influence. You can't tell me TikTok is not influencing people's behavior. Because
Really?
it totally does.
yeah, it does. It absolutely
Completely
You
does.
can't tell me that you're already not being influenced
Oh, I
on
know.
the other stuff that like the Twitter and the Instagram Reels and the stories. And I mean, Instagram Reels are, Steve, I hate to break it
It's
to you.
TikTok. I
It's
know.
TikTok.
I'll tell you though, I don't think Instagram Reels are a good thing. I am constantly trying to stop myself from doing that.
Well, let me tell you what people are claiming that they're going to go to. And I honestly don't feel like TikTok's going to be banned. I think they're going to revamp it. I
They'll
think
work
they're
something
going
out.
there were talks that Elon Musk is going to buy it. I don't think Elon Musk is going to buy it because he's going to hold a federal position in the Doge. So I think there's a big conflict of interest in that sense, but he may connect them to the right people. Okay, so the number one that people are talking about going to is called Red Note. It is actually the Chinese version of TikTok. And so I'm sure all of these Chinese people are waking up and going, why do I have all these American people on my For You page? So it's the number one thing. There are some little nuances about it. Lemonade is another one of those. Lemonade is almost like if TikTok and Pinterest had a baby, it's Lemonade. But Lemonade is
that
also
sounds
owned
terrible.
by ByteDance, so that may be banned as well. There's also something called OWN, O-W-N. It's a pay-per-view. It hasn't launched yet, but there's a tremendous wait list for this. I don't like I'm not paying for nothing. Sorry, not doing it. There's something else called Fanbase. That's very similar to Instagram. You're just reinventing the wheel, right? Okay, so, but then the last one is Blue Sky Social.
I've heard of that.
That one's more like Twitter, which I think they were talking about the demographic age.
Is Blue Sky the one that all the Democrats said they were going to go to after Trump won the election, and they said they weren't going to be on Twitter anymore? I think that's
I don't know.
what I've heard.
I
I've never heard
mean,
of
we
that.
have like Mallet and Michelle now have an X account because when Cooper Rummel was on, all the athletes are on there. So I pushed our platform out that way. It took me, I don't know, a week to figure out how to get another X.
And we've done nothing with it since.
No, so sorry about that, but I probably have 3 followers, and it's me, Todd, and Cooper. I don't know who it is, but yeah, there's so many social media. It's just the way of the world now. I mean, it's the way people communicate. It's the way people socialize. It's the way people date. It's the way people are getting their news. And whether you like it or not, it's the way of the world. What I really liked about TikTok was this. I used it almost like a search engine, and I've talked to you about this before, is that where Google, I felt like, would filter my stuff out. I could search something on like, for instance, the New Orleans horrific thing that happened on New Year's Day, right? I could search that. Where was it? What street? I'm not going to an MSNBC. I'm not going to a Fox. I'm not going to a CNN. I could search TikTok, and there was somebody on there that would show me the exact map on Bourbon Street in the French Quarter, exactly where it happened. Where was this ice chest found? Where was his truck? Oh, here's the surveillance video. It's not being filtered through legacy media, which I feel is dead and gone for this generation. And they need to suck it up. And they don't like the free speech.
I agree with that. 100% agree with that part of it. Well, I think where you could go wrong is because it's on TikTok does not mean it's true. Like
because it's on MSNBC does not mean it's true.
I
either.
agree.
So,
hear me out.
No. But I do. I recognize that there's falsehoods out there. You just got to do search.
You have to be smart with what you.
Oh yeah.
What you take in on social media. I saw that video about the firefighters in California were putting out the fires with handbags that they took out of people's homes. Did you see that?
No. I saw one with a cone. He was holding a cone.
There was a video, and it's like the firefighters have no water, so they're scooping water out of people's pools in their handbags that they find in the houses and
like
go put out the fire.
Like a Birkin bag.
Well, it turns out they actually do. One of the firefighter tools is a canvas bag that you can use to like scoop water out of something and go pour it on a hot spot
so
somewhere.
they just assumed it was...
but the TikTok video was saying, "Oh my gosh, look at this horrible." So that's my point.
It's the same misinformation.
Take it in. It's okay. Be a little skeptical.
Well, you also you have to know how to work TikTok. And the way that I have figured out how TikTok works for me is if I watch a video and it seems a little sketch, or is it AI, or is there something going on? Go through the comments, because there are people that are much smarter than I am. And through the comments, you will find different avenues and different streets. And you want to turn right here. You want to turn left. You want to go straight.
Do you feel like that time you spend makes you smarter or more informed, better informed?
Yeah, I do. I feel like it does. Yeah, I do. I do struggle with the time limit. This is the year I'm reading more books, and so I'm trying to figure out, like, I don't have like a parental timer like yours is, like social media.
Is worthless.
Because actually, if someone tells me not to do something, I'm going to do it more.
Yeah.
But I do. I feel like sometimes you can just go to this doom scrolling and chair rot and just continue going.
That's the problem.
But I'm like, okay, I'm going to be on it for 30 minutes. I'm going to search this, and I'm going to search this only.
For me, it's a little like playing video games. When I was younger and I'd play video games, I'd go, I'm going to play video games for an hour. And like 8 hours later, I'd just, pull myself up off the couch.
Brain rot.
They had video games when you were a kid? Like, what was it like?
Yeah, it was
like
this
a
little
ball and a
pong,
stick.
Pong. Bing, bing, bing. Yeah,
Kick the can? Was that a video game? Was like the first video game?
Kick the can. Yeah, that's the one. So, well, you know what? It's going to be interesting to see what happens with TikTok. I don't know if it's going away. I kind of feel like it won't. I think maybe it's just a big pressure.
Why haven't the U.S. or just started their own TikTok?
It's a good question.
Well, that's all these other platforms here. I don't know. I mean, maybe.
Well, I think they are. I mean, Instagram's tried to.
Yeah.
If Instagram could take over TikTok, not take over the company, but take over that market share, they would do it in a heartbeat. But I don't think they can.
The short video form is not going anywhere. It is not, and I have to be really honest with you. When TikTok first started, I thought, what was the thing before TikTok? Vine. Do you remember Vine?
Oh my God, I do.
My kids would do Vines and they'd have these like inside jokes and they still go, oh, it's an avocado. And I have no idea where that came from, but they say it to each other all the time.
Snapchat still a thing?
Yeah, but for like younger, I was on Snapchat. I took it off.
Is
yeah.
a scary
well,
one.
I
And I think a
agree.
lot of parents have chimed in on that.
I took that off.
Sometimes I wonder, is the upside of all this bigger than the downside of all this?
I don't know. I mean, like, what is the upside? Like, I mean, so we just go back. Who's pushing it? And there's a whole thing about
Back to the little rotary phone.
No.
Hey, Carlisle, it's
Oh my
Steve.
God.
What is the thing?
You dial the wrong number, you got to start all over again.
Have you heard of manufacturing consent? Have you ever heard of that book? And you and I have kind of in a roundabout. We never gave it a label, but they manufactured something, and therefore now you were giving them their consent to do it. Right? So think about TikTok. The narrative is the legacy media is pushing the Chinese are stealing your data. The Chinese are stealing your data. Well, you don't need to be getting your news from there. You need to be getting it from trusted, reliable
from
sources.
us, yeah.
And so it's manufactured. So like you think about COVID, for instance, right? Oh, half the population is going to go away and we're all going to die from this. And therefore, shut your businesses down, wear a mask, and don't see your grandma as she's dying. That's like the extreme example. But people on TikTok are talking or circling back to this manufactured consent in regards to the TikTok ban. So we'll see. We'll see how it plays
what
out.
happens. All right. Well, we need to take a quick little break and get Jay Miseli in here and talk to him a little bit about what he's got going on. So sit tight. We'll be right back.
Are you tired of being left in the dark when the power goes out? Say goodbye to blackouts with Nomic Power Solutions.
As your full-service Generac dealer, they offer individually designed backup power solutions.
From start to finish, they've got you covered.
Nomic Power Solutions, keeping you powered up.
Call or text 512-387-4232 or visit nomicpower.com. Follow on Instagram at Nomic Power for updates.
Nomic Power Solutions. Protect your home, protect your family, stay ready. Southstar Bank has remained true to its Texas roots for over 100 years. A commitment to the people and communities they serve, along with flexible financial solutions, allow their clients to shine. Mortgage loans, checking accounts, or complete business solutions. Southstar Bank is your financial partner. Southstar Bank, trusted by professionals, backed by tradition, built for Texas.
SouthstarBank.com. Member FDIC, an equal housing lender. NMLS 410624. Find your joy at Jovi Belterra. Life is better here. This vibrant 55 and up community is located in Dripping Springs, just right outside of Austin. 1 and 2 bedroom homes, resort style amenities, and just steps away from shops and restaurants. Forget the yard work. This is your time to relax, make new friends, and enjoy the life you've dreamed of. Find your joy at Jovi Belterra. Life is better here. Live JoviBelterra.com, 737-387-6870.
This show is brought to you in part by the Mallet Integrity Team, serving Dripping Springs, Austin, and the surrounding areas of Central Texas since 2004. When you need the best real estate advice and service, give them a call at 512-829-2062 or email them at malletintegrityteam.com. And now here's Steve and Michelle.
And we're back with Jay Miseli. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah. So I met you through Javier.
That is correct.
You guys mountain bike together.
We do, yes.
Him and I ride on the road together.
Oh, nice. So skinny tires.
Yes. So first question for you.
Skinny tires.
Has he tried to get you by a road bike yet?
He has. He tries every time we ride.
Well, come on, Jay.
Oh, not at all. Between the accidents he's been in and the skinny
that's
tires.
true.
And frankly, it's the outfits too. Oh. He wears some pretty uninspiring road biking outfits.
I'm going to just say Javier pulls it off, man.
Steve,
The
I'm
zebra suit?
just going to say I have a new nickname for you.
No.
Skinny tires.
No.
That's my new nickname. I am using that, and we're done. Thank you very much for coming to the show.
So, Jay, tell us how you ended up, after this long career in the Army, how you ended up in Dripping Springs.
Great question. So in 1997, I did my first assignment here in Texas. It was up at then Fort Hood, now Fort Cavazos and Killeen. My wife and I moved there from North Carolina. And there was a Natalie Merchant concert at the Nutty Brown amphitheater back then, not the cafe. And we drove down for it. So we got our map book out, came down,
that's right.
had our atlas. And remember it very clearly because we just parked on 290, walked on over. And so we watched the Natalie Merchant show, great show. And unbeknownst to me, as we were driving back to Fort Hood, my wife, Charlene, had said to herself, I'm going to live in Dripping Springs someday. She never told me that, just something she filed away. And fast forward, I came back to Austin. I've done a total of 5 assignments in Texas, 3 up in Killeen and then 2 here in Austin. Came to Austin in 2016 for a fellowship for a year. And in spring of 2017, we drove out here to Dripping Springs just to see the sights, participate in the Songwriters Festival. And I remember very clearly, we were sitting at the sidecar tasting room, enjoying some wine, listening to the great music. And I was sitting there under the oaks with the lights hanging. And I said to myself, I want to live here someday.
So you and your wife had never had that
We
conversation?
had not had that conversation. And I didn't tell her because we were about 2 months out from moving to Washington State. It was supposed to be a 2-year assignment up there, wound up being 4. Great experience. I allowed my daughter to go to the same high school for 4 years. So when we moved back to Austin in 2021, we knew Austin was the place for us. And we thought it was very realistic because I have an engineering background. I wanted to work in tech. And whenever I left the military, Army Futures Command is a very innovative, cutting-edge organization, really ties in with my personality. So we came here to Futures Command. But there was an element of faith that really landed us here in Dripping Springs. So I did 2 years of brigade-level command in Washington from 2017 to 2019. In 2019, I went to Afghanistan, and I served as the operations officer for all the U.S. and NATO forces there.
Oh, geez.
Great experience. Professional experience, I should
I was
say.
gonna
Let me
say,
qualify that.
yeah.
Great professional experience. So went to Afghanistan in 2019, and the first officer I worked for, a great general officer, he came out after about 3 months and came back to Washington and took command of the headquarters there. So when I was home for spring break, right when COVID hit in 2020, early 2020, I timed it with my son's spring break, so he was home. That officer grabbed me and said, hey, I'd like you to, when you come back from Afghanistan, to stay at Washington and be my operations officer for 1 more year. He said, I know you're trying to stay here because your daughter in high school. And he said, that's what I'd like to do. What do you think? And it was a tough job. It's the toughest job I've ever had in the Army. And I told him, you know what you're asking me to do, sir? And he goes, I know exactly what I'm asking you to do. And I said, I have 2 requests. He said, what are they? He said, first, I'd like to just do it for 1 year. You'll get 1 year pace of work out of me. And it's really the kind of job you do for a year because you're working so hard. And I said, the second thing is, will you help me get to Austin afterwards to go to Futures Command? And he said, those are absolutely fair requests. Let's do it. So you almost can't make this up. So I was talking to him from the lounge at the airport in Seattle. I was getting ready to fly back to Dubai to jump on a plane to go back into Afghanistan. Had that conversation with him. I called Charlene and said, hey, honey, I'm going to stay here a 4th year. We'll be able to keep Amy in high school. We'll stay together as a family. She was happy about that. So got back and we decided that we were going to go look for and buy a house in the Austin area, that we were going to take that officer on his word. And so in late March, we contracted a new build here in Dripping Springs.
Oh, wow.
Because the stuff in Austin was turning so fast.
Yeah.
I didn't want to buy a house, sit on it for a year plus, not see it, not occupy it. So we contracted a new build in spring of 2020, right as COVID was hitting, before things went nuts.
Gosh.
So we were like the leading edge of, there was still wood for the frame.
So you're a millionaire right now.
we're pretty happy. So
So you got probably a couple $100,000 of appreciation before you even closed on it.
I did. Of course, Hayes County's getting it. They're trying to
yeah,
get
true.
too.
Get their blood out of it.
Welcome to Texas property taxes.
Yes, but so we contracted that house in spring 2020. It was built while I did that year in Washington. My wife moved down here in April. We closed on the house. She moved in. My daughter graduated, and we moved down a couple months after her.
That's awesome. How's it been so far?
Love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Is it everything you guys expected?
It is.
And more, maybe?
It is. The biggest thing for me, and really for both of us, is finally being able to grow roots in a community. We always held back a little bit because whether we lived on base or off, there's always that sense of who's moving next. And the relationships are still there, but they're not like I've been in a house for 3 years with the same neighbors there.
Yeah. There's something magical about Dripping Springs. We've talked about that many, many times before, but there are so many veterans that live here in the area. So I guess you kind of build friendships in that sense, the common ground. I want to talk about and kind of go way back to the beginning, where you grew up and was military kind of always on your mind? I know that you said something about you wanted to learn to play guitar, therefore you went to West Point, and that makes
Which makes
perfect
absolutely
sense.
no sense.
Yeah, my life, if I could double back really quickly, I joke that my life follows the mountain bike philosophy. Lots of twists and turns. Sometimes you got to stop. Sometimes you got to bail. But in the end, it's always about the journey. So you almost can't make this story up either. So I started playing playing guitar when I was about 12 years old. Oh. And I absolutely loved playing guitar, band in high school. And this is a deliberate word choice. I had a fantasy of being a professional guitar player as I graduated high school. So I went to college in San Francisco, to San Francisco State University, coming out of high school. I was there in the Bay Area anyway, so it was pretty natural. And I had a comeuppance that first year. And that comeuppance was, and I no kidding, I thank Kirk Hammett. So Kirk Hammett, if you're listening to this podcast, thank you for joining Metallica, because when I got up to San Francisco from mid-Bay area, I realized that I'm like a C plus B minus guitar player. I love playing. I can play other people's music. I can't really write music very well. I don't know if it's a mental block or just a skill issue, but I was not like professional guitar player other than maybe living in my parents' basement and, trying to, rock
Playing
and roll
gigs
around the
on
Bay
Saturday
Area.
night, yeah.
Exactly. So during that first year of college, I realized that was not going to be particularly lucrative. Probably not going to lead me to owning my own house and car and having a family, stuff like that.
Eddie Van Halen, you were not.
I was not Eddie Van Halen, yes. I can do Eddie Van Halen covers okay, but I was not writing great songs. And I joke about Kirk Hammett because Metallica's from San Francisco. And in that period, he had joined Metallica. He's doing guitar lessons with Joe Satriani. I mean, there's this strata of exceptional guitar players running around the Bay Area, and I was not one of them. So, which I'm very thankful for, because learning that early in life allowed me to pivot. And no kidding, at the end of my freshman year at San Francisco State, I was walking on campus and I ran into a guy who was wearing fatigues. And I had never seen that before in San Francisco, kind of not part of the culture at San Francisco State. And I asked him who he was and what he did. And he told me he was doing ROTC at the University of San Francisco, a private Jesuit school in the city.
That's where my daughter-in-law went.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. So he was doing ROTC at USF, which San Francisco State was a satellite. And he said, well, you ought to check it out. If you're interested, come try it out. So I got the contact info from him. And as soon as the summer break was over, I contacted him. And I joined Army ROTC at the start of my sophomore year. And one of the instructors was a West Point grad. And he grabbed me and he said, hey, Jay, I think you ought to look at going to West Point. I kind of gave him the RCA dog look. I had no idea what he was talking about. And once he described what attending West Point entailed, both the process to get there, but then the opportunities associated with going there, I said, that sounds like a really good deal. And he goes, it is.
So did you have to, when you started West Point, though, did you have to restart your schooling all the way over? Or did you
I did. I did. I started. And not necessarily proud about this fact, but I transferred a whopping 0 credit hours from my time at San Francisco State over to West Point.
It's really hard to get into West Point, right? So just the fact that you wanted to go.
Because you had to get a congressional appointment.
I did.
Yes,
I did. And frankly, I think geography played a part of it because Texas is a hugely competitive state. San Francisco was not a particularly competitive state or congressional district specifically for West Point. Navy and Air Force had a lot of pressure.
That's still a pretty big deal. You got into West Point, and your children are West Pointers too. Yeah,
they are.
That's amazing. So your parents, were they military?
No. My dad was drafted during the Vietnam era. Okay. Just did one tour. That's how we met my mom. My grandfather was a World War II veteran. Very proud of his service. But almost like a little scoop. There's my grandfather who did his career. My father just did the minimal piece he had to do. And then I wound up joining and doing a full career.
So what attracted you to being in the military? What was the idea that
Yeah, what was that talk? What was that speech that you're like, oh, this is okay?
Yeah, I think it was several things. First, it allowed me to hedge against uncertainty. So I'd been bit a little bit by this notion of I'm going to go be a professional guitar player in the Bay Area. This high degree of certainty on something that wasn't feasible.
Right.
And so if we swing a little bit, joining the military.
A little?
Okay, yeah. Flip that coin over. Yeah. Go from, and I might have had to get a haircut before I did ROTC. But yeah, flipping the coin over. How about that? We'll flip the coin over. Flipping the coin over. What I discovered was I could gain skills and experience. I could enter with a degree of less certainty because, especially going to West Point, I didn't have to declare a major going in. You just apply, you're accepted, and you declare your major at the end of your freshman year. Your career field or the branch you choose You don't even choose that until your senior year. So when I looked at the model as described by the faculty member on ROTC, I realized that I could go out and discover where I wanted to be in life downstream without having to anchor on something. Because I have personal disdain, but I really don't like the fact that kids have to declare majors when they apply to
Early
college.
on, yeah.
How do you know you want to do that?
Yeah. Oh, I know. Yeah. When you're just trying to figure out who you even are,
Right.
let alone what you want to do the rest of your life.
Right.
I want you to tell me the first week that you were there. Was there a moment where you're like, Lord, what did I do? I did this.
Are going to love this story, Michelle. So the very first day, they call it our day. And it is highly organized on the cadre side and the academy side, and it is completely chaotic on the new cadet side. And you're running around. And so I remember very clearly, I was walking from one point to another on that day. And this is like the one story that truly sticks in my mind until that night. And I was walking, moving out, they call it pinging. You're walking very fast at the quasi-attention. And an upperclassman starts, I'll say, addressing me, yelling at me.
Yeah.
He's like, Miseli, blah, 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 Miseli, Miseli. And he's standing on a couple of stairs. And I'm looking up at him from a position of attention. I'm looking at him and the sun's behind his head. And I've got light blue eyes and the sun is just blaring into my eyes. And I'm squinting because it's so bright in my eyes. And part of the game is they're just going to find something to pick on you for. And so, Miseli, why are you squinting at me? And you have the 4, I don't know if you know this, but as a new cadet, you have 4 authorized responses. And you're supposed to only use these responses. They're yes, sir, or ma'am, no, sir, no excuse, sir, or sir, I do not understand. And those are your 4 authorized responses.
That's it. You can't say anything else.
You can't say anything else. So you create this little logical do loop. That's part of the fun. Because how do you say, Miseli, why are you squinting? No excuse, sir. No, I want to know, why are you squinting?
Oh.
No excuse, sir.
So if you'd have given him a reason for that, what would have happened?
Well, if I may, we'll get there in a second. So a couple more iterations of this. Why are you squinting? Sir, I do not understand. I understand. He's asking me why I'm squinting, and I'm squinting because the sun's in my eyes. So he finally stops and he goes, Miseli, what are you thinking? And the filter just dropped. And I said, this place is a drag, man. And that to me, that summarizes my first 3 months at West Point. It's just it was a drag. It got fun when I started to build the team and doing some of the Army training and stuff. But that first week.
Did you have some moments where you went, what the hell am I doing? I need to go do something else.
Oh, yes. That first night I was laying in my cot and I'm like, what in the heck have I gotten myself into? I'm like, what in the world? This place is crazy.
Are you allowed to quit, though?
You can.
Oh, yeah.
You can.
Do you think most of the new guys, new people, men and women, have that same thought in the first week or so?
I absolutely think so. I think everybody has that notion of what in the world is this place about?
Is it kind of built in? They kind of want you to feel that so that you are committed to being there?
Yeah, I think so. And strip away a little bit of the facade to force you to become dependent on your classmates.
Right.
Who are your classmates for life. So I think it really forces you together very quickly.
Wow. And so then you did 4 years at West Point.
I did my 4 years at West Point.
And then you had to sign up for 6 years in the Army. Is that right?
It's 5 years of active duty and then 3 years of what's called individual ready reserve.
Okay. And then where were you stationed as soon as you came out and went into the Army? Where were you first stationed?
So part of the reason I really appreciated the opportunity at West Point is based on your class rank, you can choose your branch of the Army and your assignment. Another twist and turn on the mountain bike ride of life, I chose armor branch, so tanks and cavalry operations or scouting. So I chose armor branch, and my first assignment was supposed to be Fort Carson, Colorado, outside of Colorado Springs. And at the very last minute, I got switched to now Fort Liberty, but formerly Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
Okay.
So I went from a cavalry unit in Colorado to an airborne unit. So we actually had, my wife jokingly called them baby tanks, but we had airdroppable tanks.
Oh, geez.
So my first assignment was with these late 1950s vintage airdroppable tanks called the Sheridans. So we would push them out of the planes. 8 parachutes would deploy. They'd float down. And then we would jump out after them, land near them, cut the parachutes and all the rigging and stuff off, doing the machine gun on top and the radio in there. And then we'd fight them on the drop zone with the 82nd Airborne Division.
That's pretty cool. Is that where you met your wife in North Carolina? You said North Carolina earlier.
It's not. She is. She's one of my classmates' little sisters. And
You dog you.
I am. I'm that person.
I guess it wasn't that much of a drag.
It was. No, by that time it was not a drag. No, he asked me to take her to a dance. And she grudgingly agreed, and I grudgingly agreed actually, and thank goodness he did, because here we are.
What do you, don't you say that you grudgingly agreed, because you're going to be sleeping on the couch if she
No,
hears this. It was all her.
It was not love at first sight. She thought I was a nerd, and I thought I jokingly thought she she reminded me of Ferris Bueller's little sister.
Oh.
Yeah. So the first time we met, we're just like, I'm going with this guy. I'm going with this gal. But then we went to the dance together and really got along nicely.
The rest is history.
And the rest is history.
So go ahead.
I was going to say, then you circle back around and then you taught at West Point for a little bit too, right?
Yes, I did. I taught up there for 2 years. Great assignment. And so it was a really fast pace. When I graduated, joined the Tank Corps, just bang, bang, bang. I was in company command when 9/11 happened. And that triggered 2 deployments in company command for me when I was in the 3rd Infantry Division. We wound up doing the invasion in 2003. And coming out of that, I had the opportunity to apply to teach at West Point. And it's one of the best deals going for an active duty officer, because you have to have at least a master's degree to meet the accreditation requirements of the departments. And so I went to Georgia Tech for 2 years, got a master's there. And we moved up there as a family, lived in Atlanta, and then moved up to New York, and I taught there for 2 years.
Oh, that's really neat.
So you got deployed to Iraq, and did you see combat there in Iraq?
I did.
So tell us what you wish the average Joe knew about that time in Iraq, where you saw combat.
Great question. I think the thing I would like to share more than anything else is that I'm a student of history. I think most military professionals are.
Sure.
We collectively failed to apply some really important historical lessons in Iraq in 2003. So the invasion went swimmingly well. In fact, I invented a term called catastrophic success. Oh. I just invented that term because from a rough order perspective, the planning timeline was that the 3rd Infantry Division would take between 3 and 6 months, along with the Marines, to get to Baghdad, fighting through the Republican Guard and everybody else. And then somewhere between 3 and 6 months, we'd hit Baghdad. And then it would take another 3 to 6 months for the regime to topple. So anywhere between 6 and 12 months. So I think all the stability, all the additional forces, everything that we needed to do for post-conflict transition was on a 6 to 12 month time horizon. There was a plan. So there's a huge misnomer that the U.S. didn't have a plan. Okay. We had an incredibly detailed plan to get ready for that. In fact, I knew the planner on the Army side, and he's written a book about it recently. His name's Kevin Benson. And we had a plan. But what the plan didn't account for was 3 weeks into the invasion, the regime's toppled. And so we had this period there. It was actually remarkably calm and quiet. I think we were actually welcomed with open arms.
Really?
We don't really think about it now.
Yeah.
We were welcomed with open arms. People were incredibly glad to have us there. But we made 2 strategic mistakes. The first strategic mistake was, and we know this from history, we de-Baathified to too low of a level. So if we go to post-World War II in Germany or post-World War II in Japan, there was a certain threshold of Nazi party member that was simply a professional bureaucrat. And I'm not glamorizing.
No, I know
Nazis,
what you mean. Yeah.
very, very bad. Yeah. But if you were a professional bureaucrat that just simply ran some function in the state, you were a Nazi because you had to be a member of the party to be a bureaucrat. And same thing with Imperial Japan. So we denazified to a certain level. You know, the true political party out, Nuremberg, that type of stuff. But then the bureaucrats renounce your affiliation with the Nazi party, continue to run the country. So I'll share a quick story with you. When we got to Baghdad, regime fell, we started to establish some static bases. At my base, I was the senior company commander of my battalion. And so my battalion commander gave me the responsibility of handling all the civil affairs and the engagements with all the locals, both on the political side and the religious side, as well as basic services. So there was a woman, she had a master's degree from the United Kingdom. She was an engineer, and engineer is a huge title. It's an honorific.
Yeah.
So if you're an engineer, it's an honorific in that culture. She was the engineer that ran the combined water, sewage, and power plant for our district.
Yeah.
Yes. And we were getting a nominal cash flow, we'll say like $50 or $100 a day or something like that. And I was able to pay her and her staff like $25 or $50 a day to all show up to work, run this facility, keep our district going. And this is April timeframe. Okay. So it's starting to get warm. Mm-hmm. And so from a basic provisions of services, for about $50 a day with this Baath Party member and her staff, we were able to keep the people in our district pretty happy, which validated the Americans came, they've liberated us from the regime. Well, when the first catastrophic or strategic mistake we made was we debathified to too low of a level. So I had to fire her.
Oh, okay. That came from above your head.
They came from well above us.
Okay.
It came from the political side of the political leadership in Afghanistan.
Okay.
And there was a change in folks who were doing political leadership, but I fault the person who was running that. It was Ambassador Paul Bremer who came in.
Okay.
And Bremer made that decision. I don't know the context behind it, but I felt it because we debathified to too low of a level. And that wasn't just services like engineers. It was also police and some basic other services.
And we're getting rid of people that were just doing basic daily services.
Yes. The stuff that keeps your community running.
Yeah.
Jay, what does Baffified mean?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. So the Ba'ath Party was the political leadership party. To be a member of the country's infrastructure, bureaucrat, or security forces, you had to be a member of the Ba'ath Party.
Okay.
And so Ba'ath, it's a colloquialism. So thanks for asking, Michelle. Yeah, it's getting rid of the Ba'ath Party or eliminating the Ba'ath Party to too low of a level.
So coming out of that experience, my brother was in the Navy and he served some time in there. I have a lot of probably $1 million of Iraqi money in my safe right now, but that'll never worthless. Oh, you never know.
Yeah.
But what was a personal, memorable moment for you outside of your professional serving of the military? Like, do you have a moment where you're just like,
I do. So can I answer that 1 second?
Yeah,
Because I would like to
go
just hit the other strategic mistake. The other strategic mistake was along that same path, and that was disbanding the security forces. So we disbanded the regular army, we disbanded the police force. So you had no security apparatus and you had no infrastructure. And then that allowed for the security vacuum and the dissatisfied or disenfranchised population that led to the chaos that we start to see emerge May into June.
So that hole that was created was filled with people that didn't have good intentions.
chaos?
Yes.
Yeah.
Chaos.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yes, we created a vacuum and it was chaos.
So back to your personal moment, your personal.
Yes. So I personally strongly believe in that mission, and I'm really, very proud that I got to be part of it, not only for our military efficacy during the invasion, but what I think we set in terms of conditions for the country. So as part of that civil and military relations, I had about 5 translators that were working for us on the base, a couple of really neat guys, interesting background. One of them, his name was Munir, and Munir introduced me to 3 men who were his friends. And these men had a really, really vague concept of capitalism and business. And they wanted to sell sodas and candy bars on our base. And we were at the point where we'd been eating MREs for about 40 days.
Yeah.
Everyone was ready for some morale.
You'd even eat a Milky Way, is what you're saying. Yeah.
or drink an RC. And so this story was so funny. So they came so I said, okay, we'll bring them to the base tomorrow. I'll meet them and we'll see what their product is. So they brought a 12-pack of Pepsi's made somewhere in the Middle East and a 12-pack of candy bars, I think Milky Ways or something like that. So they brought 12 candy bars and 12 sodas. And I said, okay, what's your proposal? And they said, we will sell these for 50 cents each, so 2 for $1. And I said, okay, well, how much do you pay for them? And they said, we buy them 2 for $1. And I said, and I kind of cocked head look, and I'm like, so you buy them 2 for $1? I'm like, yes, we buy them 2 for $1. I said, and you're going to sell them 2 for $1? I said, yes. And they said, how are you going to make money? And they're like, you're going to give us money. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not going to give you money. But the notion of, so I said,
they thought you were going to give them money so they could go make their money back.
Exactly. Well, I would pay them for selling at cost. Like their net margins would come from, okay, great. You sold your 12 sodas, so here's $1 profit for you or something today or something like that.
Interesting.
Yeah. So they thought I was going to pay them to sell stuff. So I said, no, that's not what we're going to do. They give me this look. And I said, here's what we're going to do. I pulled my personal $20 out of my wallet. I said, I'm going to give you $20. You're going to go buy 10 sodas and 10 candy bars. And you're going to sell them for $1 each. And they looked at me like, it's kind of wide eyes. Like, what's this guy talking about? This is crazy. And I said, I'm going to make a bet that you will pay me back my $20 within 2 weeks. And the translator tells them this, and they kind of talk to each other. And they're just kind of like, okay, this guy's crazy. So I hand him a 20 spot. I'm like, nothing else. I lose $20.
Yeah.
It makes for a great story.
Yeah.
20 some years later. So I give them the $20. They come back the next day and they sold the sodas and the candy bars for $1 each, gone within about 15 minutes. And so then they didn't know what to do. So they're sitting there with $40. And I'm like, go buy 40 sodas and candy bars. And they're like, really? I'm like, yeah, go buy more. So they came back the next day. They brought a cart and within about 2 or 3 weeks, they did pay me back. So they gave me a $20 bill. Super proud. I got a great picture of me with their store. And they were probably netting $200 to $300 a day.
Wow.
Within about a month.
No way.
Yeah.
Which is probably more money than they would have ever made in normal time.
Did you ever get, or were you allowed to interact with their families and in their personal homes? Or?
With those guys, I didn't. But I did have an interesting, somewhat parallel story. I met a professor at the University of Baghdad, and we connected because at this point in time, I knew I was going to go teach at West Point. He was scared. He'd been on the streets after curfew and thought he was going to get arrested or maybe killed. So we had shepherded him. We got him home. And so he came back to the base the next day after we got him home and brought a note with his address and everything else. And from a mental mindset perspective, this is what the environment was like at that time. So I took a crew, I had a security detail, but we went down and I had lunch with him and his wife and a couple of his grandkids at his house. And it was amazing because he taught American politics at the University of Baghdad.
Oh, wow.
And so he had to talk to a primary source and for me to get to talk to him as well. And as a parting shot, I gave him a copy of the book that I read pre-invasion called The Threatening Storm. And it was a great treatise on why all of the control measures and everything against Iraq were starting to fail. And that invasion was really the last feasible outcome or just allowing the regime to endure. So I gave him my copy of that book. And I said, this is a book that influenced a lot of people to decide to do this. And he gave me a copy of his, the state-approved instructional book that they used at the university.
Oh, that's
the textbook.
Would that have been under Saddam Hussein?
Under Saddam, yeah.
Oh, I bet
under
that
Saddam.
was interesting to read.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Is it full of just stuff that's just completely false?
Propaganda.
Just propaganda is what the word I was thinking.
Truth in Advertising, I haven't written it. It's written in Arabic. I have not read it. But so I've got that book is one of my proudest keepsakes. And then the other proud keepsake is, and my kids are fascinated by this book. In one of Saddam's palaces, I found a book and it was printed in English. The cover was in English on one side and Arabic on the other. And it's an Arabic book. And the title of the book is The Complete Discourses of Machiavelli.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you got to go in one of the palaces.
I did get to go in one of the palaces and it was nuts. It was giant, like double king size bed, indoor pool, gold plated toilets, everything you heard about.
And then you walk outside of the palace, right? And these people are living.
Yeah. Oh, yes, exactly. In fact, the reason we had to go to the palace is there were some people kept shooting at us from the palace. We had to clear them out. And we got in the palace and we're like, holy cow. And two other interesting stories from that palace. So I got two things. I liberated two things from that palace.
I
liberated.
I do that on the daily here at
the. She does. Yes.
Yeah. So I liberated that book because, in my mind, a copy of Niccolo Machiavelli's discourses on Saddam Hussein's nightstand, like the irony was not lost on me. I was like, and then the other thing I liberated was this absolutely gorgeous ashtray, and it was like 1 inch thick lead crystal. It had the bath party seal embossed on it, and we jokingly call it the evil candy dish now because it makes a great M&M dish, but. My driver was a nuclear, biological, and chemical specialist in the Army. He found and kept a German-made nuclear, biological, chemical protective suit that was in a suitcase underneath one of the beds in one of the cabanas there.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
I bet your mind was like really having a hard time comprehending what your eyes were seeing though half the time. Was it? We were just like, I can't believe I'm actually
taking all
here.
that.
It was very surreal. I'm assuming, have you seen Saving Private Ryan?
Yes.
You know that scene where he goes like super myopic on the beach? It felt like that. I was like, there was just moments where I was like, is this really happening?
Yeah, I could see that. Were you involved in the withdrawal from Afghanistan?
Yes, I was.
So what's your take on that? How well that went?
Yes. So that is a point of immense frustration for me for a couple of reasons. So to be absolutely precise, when I was the operations officer in Afghanistan, two major elements of my portfolio were planning for the implementation of the U.S. Taliban peace agreement, which was signed at the end of February of 2020, and working with the planning team for the glide path down to zero as part of the implementation of that peace agreement. I was not physically there in 2021. Okay. I left in June of 2020. So it was our plan that we handed off to our successors.
Gotcha.
They were executing the plan. And it's a quick teaser. What happened in August of 2021 was not the plan by far. And I'll talk about that in detail. So one of the frustrations for me is going back to being a student of history. If we look at Iraq, we left Iraq hastily at the end of 2011, and we created a security vacuum.
Right.
And what happened? We got the rise of ISIS as a response to that security vacuum. Iraqis were not at that point in time postured to secure their country, the stability of the government, everything else. So we created the security vacuum. And I don't personally subscribe to the Afghanistan's like Vietnam analog, but the security vacuum at the end of Vietnam in 1975, we saw how that regime collapse looked. We saw what happened in Iraq in 2011. And so to be completely forthright, I had never been in Afghanistan before going over there in 2019, going into a very senior role, working with both NATO and U.S. forces. I had a predisposition. I did a bunch of reading. I had some great recommendations on books going over there, read those books. I was predisposed that we were probably at or beyond the point of diminishing returns in Afghanistan, in large part because my mental model comparison was in Iraq, you had an educated middle class, you had infrastructure, you had an economic basis with oil and food. So Iraq was, in essence, postured to stand on its own 2 feet. And Afghanistan was well behind that. No educated middle class, certainly disenfranchisement of women. Never would have had a woman engineer.
Oh, yeah.
In 2003 I did in Iraq. And so when I looked at it going over there, my thought was, it's probably time to withdraw and go to zero in Afghanistan. And during my course of experience there over that year that I was deployed there, I left believing that we should stop at some level, and that level was about 2,500 troopers. Then you start wrapping contractors and stuff around that. But there was a point where you could maintain a viable presence there, help keep the country on track for its growth,
right?
Still have a little bit of a hedge against some adversaries in the neighborhood because you got some bad guys that touch Afghanistan. And the economic cost was pretty nominal too.
Yeah.
I mean, and by way of historical comparison, we're still in Germany. We're still in Japan. We're still in Korea. We're still in Iraq. We're still in Kuwait. So
you think it was optics?
Interestingly, I think getting out of Afghanistan was one of the few truly bipartisan things where both sides agreed that they saw it as necessary to get out of there. I don't know if it was optics or if it was, who was racing to be the president that closed the door on the Afghan mission. But I think it was ill-advised. My personal take and what I offered as part of my staff recommendations for my position was, under the peace agreement, we were supposed to stair-step down. We were about 14,000 when I got there. When I left, we were on track to 8,600. That was the first plateau. Then we had around 5,000, 5,500 is the next plateau. 2,500 was the final plateau. And once you go below 2,500, it's irreversible. Not truly irreversible, but it'd be incredibly hard. Similarly, the basic plan was to withdraw from remote bases and just basically collapse spokes into hubs. And the three principal hubs at the end were going to be Kabul, Kandahar, and Bagram. And the last bastion under our framework was going to be Bagram because it's a huge runway. You can fly C-17s or C-5s in all day long. It's removed from the city. It's about 20-minute helicopter flight, about a 1-hour drive from Kabul. So it's removed enough that you can make that the place where you just do a controlled drawdown. The factors that led us to deviate from that plan, stay with Kabul as the final base, which is not defensible and certainly not suitable. It's not optimal for trying to withdraw. And we saw that, unfortunately, on the media. I think that in the end, that was a political series of decisions that came out of Washington, D.C. I don't think that they considered the professional military advice that was coming. I can't say what anybody above me offered as advice. I can assume that what I was estimating and helping provide is probably generally aligned. And if it's a political decision to go to zero, I mean, that's part of our system.
Yeah. How frustrating is it as a professional soldier to to know that people that are watching their asses politically are calling the shots and telling you what to do?
Well, great question. I mean, I think in the end, it's a system that we have subscribed to support. And in the end, that oath starts with support and defend the Constitution.
Sure.
So, in fact, I'm in the process of reading a paper right now with a friend talking about where military should lie in terms of policy discussions versus military advice. And his thesis is that post-World War II, the military has lost its ability to be able to inform policy decisions while still remaining apolitical. And I generally agree with that thesis because I think everything following World War II with the attention that senior officers get, the level of scrutiny, decisions, the openness of media, the misinformation.
Sure.
I think that there's a risk aversion that manifests as I'm going to view policy as a third rail. And I'm going to have this discrete threshold where I can say, well, I offered my best military advice to the policy maker.
Gotcha.
But I didn't necessarily blur the lines on policy. So I think we're in a bit of a gray space right now in terms of where we ought to be and where we are.
I want to kind of shift gears a little bit and talk about your involvement with the Whiskey Valor Foundation.
Yes, ma'am.
And I started looking at that. I mean, it's veterans and whiskey. I mean, what's not to love about that? I love that.
Yeah.
Talk about what that organization does.
Yes. So I have to give credit where it's due. I must thank my wife for connecting me with Whiskey Valor Foundation because their founder, our founder, Luis Martinez Jr., initially approached Charlene and asked her to be on the board. She worked in the nonprofit sector. And so what she couldn't do is join another nonprofit on their board and potentially have conflict of interest there. So she said, I can't do it, but I know somebody who cares about veterans and their families and who really appreciates a good whiskey. So our basic premise is whiskey and alcohol in general, it's part of American culture. It's part of military culture. Let's not ignore that fact. Let's not try and become teetotalers or something like that. And there's still a lot of interest in continuing to support veterans and their families through various organizations. So our model is really simple. We facilitate a partnership between a distillery and a veteran serving organization. What we do is through that facilitation, we will pay for the barrel, the bottling, the custom labels, and a challenge coin that goes with the bottle on behalf of the VSO. Once it's bottled, it's shipped to a distributor. The distributor sells it retail. All of the net margins go to the supported nonprofit. The cost of goods sold come back to us, and that way we can self-regenerate for future.
That's pretty cool.
Future support.
Have you been able to partner with local distilleries here?
So great question.
Garrison Brothers, which is my favorite. Come on, Garrison.
So part of what we try and do is tie together local nonprofits with local distilleries because it's win-win. So that the distillery will get the brand name recognition, the nonprofit gets to tie in. We are approaching a major media release about our first ever barrel selection, which might have occurred about 45 minutes west of us. And
I know I look like a pretty princess, but I love a good old fashioned.
You and me both. So incredible partnership, and we're working. We want to make sure that we're respectful of their media announcement associated with the partnership, and so that'll be coming any day now. But we just did our first barrel selection. The nonprofit we're supporting is Vet Plus MAP, which right now they're a local nonprofit that works with the Student Veterans Alliance, and they're at Texas A&M, and their model is a veteran who's coming to Texas A&M, they will help them with a full skills analysis, help them map that out such that they are choosing a degree in a career field that aligns with their skills and experience. And they're not choosing something like, I'm going to go be a guitar player and wind up being in the military.
I wouldn't use your life as an example because you are a total outlier.
I am very much an outlier. But in all seriousness, Vet Plus MAP will help those veterans find the right academic and career fields. And so they are our first partner with this barrel selection, and we should be announcing the barrel partner and the sales of the barrel. And I would tell you, as part of the tasting committee, watch our website. You want to grab a bottle because they are magnificent.
We'll have to talk about it next time.
If we're talking about the same 45-minute west kind of place that I have frequented, sometimes you have to wait 2 hours in line to get a new release of a bottle. So, maybe I will go get in line
Yep.
for that.
Yeah, so we've got a retailer in DC who can, or a distributor in DC who will receive all the bottles. They can sell them retail. We set the price point so that we're making a fundraising for the supported veteran service organization, and then they'll ship those to. They can ship to 47 states. Texas is one, so there will be some incredibly good single barrel select, of which I was one of the 5 tasting members for
That's
it.
really exciting. I know that the Rescue Swimmer Association, I think they did a partnership with Maker's Mark. They did one as well, and they had special labels, and that was really neat as well. So,
Jay, you mentioned that you got a chance to meet Hal Moore, and and I knew him from the movie We Were Soldiers, which I was telling Michelle
that's
is my
his favorite
movie of all time. I love that movie. Have you seen it, Carl? Yeah. So tell us about you actually got to meet Hal Moore.
I did. So when I was a cadet, I read the book We Were Soldiers Once and Young, and I did a battle analysis on it. And I was really captivated by 2 things. One, from an organizational perspective, the morale and elan of the cavalry. And just for everyone out there, if you don't know, Hal Moore commanded the 1st Squadron, or 1st Battalion at the time, 7th Cavalry. That is Custer's old unit. So the history goes all the way back to 1866 and 1876 with Little Bighorn and everything in between. And it's just an incredibly storied organization. Yeah. So I read the book and was captivated by the cavalry culture and Hal Moore's leadership on the battlefield. And I've been a student of his. I'm a fanboy.
Yeah.
I'm a Hal Moore fanboy. And I was so fortunate to get to command my dream assignment in the United States Army. My battalion level command was the 1st Squadron of the 7th U.S. Cavalry up at then Fort Hood, now Fort Cavazos. Yeah, when that list came out, a mentor of mine called me the night before, and he was an old school guy, and you're not supposed to know until the list comes out that morning. Yeah. He called me and goes, "Hey, Jay, do you know the lyrics to Gary Owen?" Gary Owen is the motto, but it's also the regimental tune. Yeah. And I'm like, "No, sir, I don't." And he goes, "Well, you probably ought to learn them since you're going to be carrying the regimental colors." Oh, wow. And I was like, holy crap, because the lowest numbered battalion or squadron in the regiment not only has their squadron colors, but also the regimental colors. So I get to carry colors that went all the way back to 1866 with my formation. So I was at Fort Benning, which ironically is now named Fort Moore in honor of Hal and Julie Moore. And I was at Fort Moore doing the pre-command course. And I knew General Moore's son, Dave Moore, from my previous assignment there at Fort Benning when I was captain. So I reached out to him and I said, "I'm going to be here in Georgia for 2 weeks. Your dad lives up in Auburn. Is there any chance I can meet him before I take command?" And he said, "Dad would love that. We'll set it up."
That's so cool.
It is. So they said 7:00, be at the house. So I drove up to the house. Obviously they're like at 6:30, waiting. And then I rang the doorbell right at 7 and we sat down and it was such a wonderful evening.
You rang the doorbell right at 7. You weren't 15 minutes early?
No. I wanted to be.
He was 30 minutes early. He just made sure he was going to ring it right at 7.
Yes, exactly. I wanted to ring it right. I didn't want to get there early.
Hiding in the bushes.
Yeah, because they're getting dad dressed and stuff like that, or maybe feeding him dinner and whatnot. And he was demonstrating some of the early onsets of dementia at the time, but it was such a special evening. So he would say, every conversation started, we cracked a bottle of wine, we're hanging out, and he would start with, "Where'd you go to school?" I said, "I went to West Point." He goes, "I went to West Point." And he would say, "What class are you?" "I'm class of 95. "I'm class of 45. Oh, wow. And they'd say, "What company were you in?" I was in company E1. He goes, "I was in E1. "What barracks did you live in?" Grant Barracks. And then right about that point, he would go off and tell a story from his career. And he was telling incredible stories, like being in Korea in occupation forces, being in Japan in occupation forces as a lieutenant, because he graduated in 1945. Okay. Being in Korea as a company commander. He was telling me about jumping out of airplanes into the Gulf of Mexico to see how paratroopers would do landing in water. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's just stuff that these days we're like, holy cow. And near the end of the night, so he would tell a story, come back, and then come back, same pathway to a story. And so we get near the end of the evening and Dave's like, "Hey, Dad, I think Jay's going to have to get going now. He's got to drive back to Georgia." Sure. I'm like, "Oh, absolutely."
You're like, "I could be here all night."
Oh, exactly. I mean, I will stay here as long as you guys let me. And so he goes, "Hey, Dad, why don't you sign a picture for him?" So he brought out a picture and it's of him and Basil Plumley from the day after the Battle of LZX, November of 1965. And Basil Plumley had already signed it. And so Hal Moore's got the picture in his hand. He's got a Sharpie. And he's looking at me and he goes, "Hey, Jay." I'm like, "Yes, sir." He goes, "Lean in." I lean in. He goes, "You want to know the secret for commanding in the 7th Cavalry?" I said, "What's that?" He kind of gets this little wry grin. He goes, "Don't get surrounded. We're only batting 500." And then he signs the picture, hands it to me, and kind of starts to doze off.
Wow.
Yes.
That's so
And he was like, "That's it. I'm done."
That's it. He's like, that was
what
his
a
foot stop
great
moment.
experience. That's got to be one of the highlights of your career.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
It is. And then about 6 months later, Basil Plumley passed, and his family requested that our troopers do the funeral honors. So we flew back to Georgia, and we did the entire funeral honors for him. And got to represent the squadron and meet a bunch of the veterans from LZ X-Ray who were great guys.
Wow. What a great story. Michelle, I could sit here and talk to you all day long. I have probably 25 more questions, but I'm not going to get to them because Michelle wants to do something.
Well, I know. We want to get onto your South by Southwest partnership, but I have one question that was really kind of stuck with me. Your entire adult life almost has been revolved around military, and I was reading a past article of yours where you said your personal and business interactions in the past had become very transactional in nature in one sense. And there was a quote that you said, "I hope you appreciated the time that I allotted from my own busy life." And what was the switch that kind of flipped? Do you have to remind yourself every so often to not be that person? And it's kind of funny when I read that, it struck with me because I shared with you, I have a kid that just got out of the military and now he's into higher level education. And I see that kind of in him, that personality trait. And I feel like a lot of high level, very successful people that almost have to have that trait to be successful. And so do you regret that personality trait that you had because it got you to where you are today, or is it something that you would have changed?
So I promised myself when I retired, I have no regrets, because if I changed any step along that path, I may not be sitting here right now talking to you guys, and I wouldn't jeopardize anything that leads to us being here right now, my children doing what they're doing, my wife's doing what she's doing. That said, if I could guarantee the outcome with doing some things different, my biggest life lesson is, and I didn't read this book until after I'd been a brigade commander. I wish I had read the book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There.
Yes.
I wish I had read that as I was coming out of being a major in a battalion, and after battalion command, and after brigade command. And the first time I read it was after brigade command, because that would have forced me to be reflective on the tools and techniques and leadership style that was appropriate at that level and reflective of my maturation and growth. I would have adapted it and been a little different. I think I fell into a twofold trap. So when you hit the nail on the head, Michelle, there's the culture of, wow, you're so busy, you're successful, you're doing this, you're doing that, which becomes self-feeding because then people treat you like you're too busy to have time for people.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, oh, you're so busy. You know, I'm very thankful when people say thank you for your time, but the most important resource I have is my time.
Sure.
And I love to give my time towards others because it's a way for me to pay back for everyone who invested in me.
I feel like sometimes with my son, like when we talk to him, that we have to have an agenda before when he calls. It's like, okay, I've got a bullet point. Okay, because he's giving me 10 minutes to talk to him.
Right.
You know, and so I'm like, okay, I'm trying to get all this information in. Oh, so how was your day? Oh, school's great. And da-da-da-da-da-da. And so I'm seeing that kind of parallel in what you were talking about. And like, so not only you going through it, first person, but then your wife and your kids.
Right. And so I think the big lesson for me is I was structured and transactional, and I've dropped the transactional part. And now I'm just seeking to be structured. I still need to manage my time.
Yeah.
I can't just, kind of willy-nilly my days away, especially because I do have a couple irons in the fire right now. But I view every time I can make a call or meet somebody for coffee or something like that, or this conversation, this is an opportunity for me to give back as a way to thank those who invested in me. And that's why I wrote that article as I was transitioning out of the military, and I was being reflective on, because one of the things, I was being reflective on the relationships and my experience. And I'm very thankful. I had such a great ride. The stuff I got to do was incredible. And I was looking at that. And one of the things people will say when you're retiring from the military is you're going to miss the people. And I have actually found that to not be true because the relationships that mattered are still here. They haven't changed.
You can have relationships anywhere. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's not like I had these relationships that solely existed when I was active duty and then they dissolved. They've morphed. Some of the relationships a little stronger, some weaker.
Seasons. Yeah,
exactly.
some of them are seasons.
Exactly,
For sure.
exactly. So that was really my reflective piece. And I thought I should share that because if one person somewhere maybe makes that pivot 2 or 3 or 5 years earlier in their career and avoids falling into that, I'm going to call it transaction fallacy, because you're being told you're so busy, you're so important, you're doing such, and then you just kind of, it starts to spiral. So that was really my thought process.
It really struck my heart reading that, because I remember talking to my kid and right at the start of this current schooling, and he broke his time up in percentages. Like, so I have a percentage that I can give to school, and I have a percentage.
That point in his life, though, too. I mean, that's a young person.
I just wanted to take a book and just smack him upside the head. But instead, you know what I did? I ordered that book.
Oh, perfect.
And I've sent it to him. I ordered it yesterday, and I sent it to him. And I my older son, and I sent it my husband. He was like, "Wow, that was like, there was just that one little paragraph of that article that you said that it just kind of struck with all of us in our family." And it was like, I appreciated that. I appreciated.
So you're going to go when you go to Oregon. You're going to find that book and get a highlighter and just highlight the
I'm
hell
going
out
to
of
write
that one
it.
paragraph.
I'm going to write it in invisible Sharpie on his mirror, so when fog comes through, it'll be right there. Well, you're talking about many irons in the fire. Let's talk about South by Southwest.
Red Thread X is a company you're involved in, right?
Yes.
And you're doing something with South by Southwest.
Yes, we are.
So tell us about that.
Okay, so one of the things I love about this chapter or this season of life is getting to apply my entrepreneurial spirit. So a longtime mentor connected me with my partner and co-founder for Red Thread X. His name's Barry McGuff, is the co-founder. And the basic premise for Red Thread X is this. We realized that, and just to frame it, South by Southwest 2024, 238,000 people came the first weekend for the tech conference. There were over 1,700 events. Of those 1,700 events, about 450 were actual official South by Southwest content. The other 1,300 were what we call off-campus content.
Sure. So
Capital Factory or Fast Company or something like that. They're running their houses. And so Barry and I are part of an innovation and foresight group under a longtime mentor of mine. And there was a bunch of folks in this group who said, we want to come to South by Southwest, but we're basically afraid. We know we'll come down there, we'll get lost, there'll be no ROI. And I've heard the description. It's a lot like going to Disneyland. If you don't have a plan, you're going to stand in line for 10 hours for Magic Mountain or something like that. And so, and just as a pairwise comparison, I just got back from CES last week, the Consumer Electronics Show. Mm-hmm. This was a record year for CES. They had 141,000 people in Vegas for the week.
Jeez, wow.
So we're going to eclipse that by 100,000. That was nuts.
My husband's an engineer. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
I learned a lot from it. And I went to see how they ran that and what the tech trends were so that we can better understand how we can realize our value prop with Red Thread. So when we realized that there's these executive leaders out there who know they need to come to South by Southwest and they know there's a lot to learn and gain from coming here, but they don't know how, we came up with a framework to give them a roadmap such that they can manage the chaos and complexity of a conference like South by Southwest.
And the roadmap is different for every executive?
It's actually not. So part of our value prop is, so right now for 2025, South by Southwest has announced what the 450 events are, but they've not released their schedule. The schedule is going to start coming out tomorrow. And we're not seeing a lot in terms of the off-campus content yet. So I can't tell you what the other houses, what they're going to have or when they're going to have it. So we do have our database of what they had last year. Sure. So we've got a comparison point. So we've got 450 events that will basically be mapped out over about 4 or 5 days, a Friday through Monday sprint. We know what the content is, but we don't know when it will occur or where it will occur. So we ran a couple of different algorithms to assess it. And South by organizes those 450 events. They organize it through 23 tracks. We took the 450 events and the 23 tracks, did a data analysis and a binning on that, and we've binned it down to what we call the 6 red threads. So we've got these macro threads.
Gotcha.
And we chose the name the Red Thread X because there's 2 philosophical origins of the concept of a red thread. The Eastern concept is the red thread of fate that brings people together and binds them and then keeps them together over time. And the Western philosophical approach is it's an idea or that spans with some continuity over time or generations.
Yep,
and so,
I heard that.
Yeah, we looked at that red thread and we looked at the red thread that brings people together. And we realized that what we're seeking is those red threads of ideas that we can go continuity from event to event and year to year. But we're also looking to bring together groups and facilitate some serendipity between them internal to the group and then who they'll meet and see during South by Southwest. So with these 6 red threads, we are binning the content against the schedule, both on and off campus content along those red threads. And then we provide that to each executive as a roadmap. Because what we don't want to do is lose the serendipity of either I'm going to this event or I was en route to this event, but then I ran into somebody and I had a chance to talk to somebody.
Yeah, because that's where the really cool stuff
And you
happens
get
sometimes.
sidetracked,
Yeah,
yeah.
if you're just like got your head down, got to boom, 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 knock all this stuff out, you can miss the really good experiences.
Exactly. Yeah. So what we don't want it to be is like a track, meaning you're following breadcrumbs.
Right.
We want to keep it broad and conceptual so that you are making your own adventure. And then the last part of our value proposition is we're constantly collecting everyone's insights, and we're doing data calls and insights throughout each day of execution. We end with a happy hour, and we pick a happy hour that's representative of some element of Austin and South by Southwest. And then the last night we host a dinner and we collect everyone's insights, and then we provide them a written report to take back to their organizations. That is their ROI.
Wow.
And I call it the wisdom of the collective. So you've got the 20 to 25 people who went through it together versus here's what I saw.
That's really cool.
That is pretty cool. How are you getting the word out on this?
So right now we're going word of mouth and peer networking. We're very fortunate because Barry being in the apparel industry and me coming from the defense side and being in tech now, we do have 2 different orbits. We've got 6 other people on the team who are all volunteers. We're bootstrapping this. So, so they're all helping us out. They're activating their networks as well. And what we found was, thankfully, there was a couple early adopters who said, we saw what you did last year. What you're doing this year is a very good value. It makes sense. And then, so we've got that network activated right now. So really we're going word of mouth through our networks. And then we are incredibly fortunate in that I had a chance to meet the CEO and the chief partnership officer for South by Southwest in November. And in talking to them, they said, hey, what you're doing makes perfect sense. It's something we can get behind. And so we're now partners with South by Southwest, the corporate entity as well.
So do you need tickets for Red Thread X and you also have to get the South by Southwest?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's 2 separate and then
Basically, you get your South by Southwest tickets, and then the Red Thread X is your map to how to
you're
have
the
best.
technological tour guide.
We are.
Yeah.
We
Oh,
are.
there you go.
And,
Yeah.
And I would flip that though, because if you join up with Red Thread X, part of our partnership is we do get a discount rate on the badges through South by Southwest.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's good
Okay.
to know. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're very generous. They're letting us do a discount and they're letting us use marks, and they have defined it as a partnership. So,
Have you ever been to South by Southwest? I've only been to the outliers.
Yeah.
Right. I've been to that, and that it's really interesting. But gosh, that was back
Amazing
back in
how
the day.
many people come.
so we're gonna have a base of operations in town called the Red Thread House, and if you guys would like to come down there and do a
love to do
recording
that.
or a live
Love
Oh,
to
we'd
do
love
that.
to. Yeah.
please consider yourselves my guests. So we'd
Yeah,
love
we
to
would
have
love
you.
that.
I would love to do that, Jay. Well, we're actually, this may be the longest podcast we've ever done, and I hardly even scratched all the questions I have. This is really, really interesting. You're a fascinating guy.
I would love to have you back.
Yeah.
I would.
Okay.
I would love to have
join
you
you.
back.
I've really enjoyed hanging out.
Maybe we could have you, as some of the changes come in politics and in the administration about things like, I wanted to ask you about Pete Hegseth. We don't have time for that today, but maybe we can talk about some of that stuff and the changes you see, because I'm sure you're still well connected in the military and hearing some of the background stuff that's going on. So it's been a lot of fun, Jay.
Been a pleasure for sure, Jay.
Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, and I look forward to that next conversation.
Yeah, well, let's do it. Find your joy at Jovi Belterra. Life is better here. This thoughtfully designed 55-plus community is paired with resort-style amenities and social activities. They offer 1- and 2-bedroom homes located in Dripping Springs, the gateway to the Hill Country. Make friends, make memories, make time for you at Jovi Belterra. Live JoviBelterra.com, 737-387-6870.
From rodeo clowns, teachers or doctors, and everyone in between, Texans have one thing in common: hard work deserves smart banking. At Southstar Bank, whether you're buying your first home, building a dream ranch, or just managing daily finances, our 16 branches across Central Texas are here for you. Southstar Bank, trusted by professionals, backed by tradition, and built for Texas. SouthstarBank.com, member FDIC, an equal housing lender, NMLS 410624.
Nomic Power Solutions, keeping you powered up.
Get to know your local full-service Generac dealer.
Cody and Dylan with Nomic Power Solutions are a veteran-owned, Texas-based Generac dealer and installer.
Offering low monthly payment options, it's never been easier to gain independence from the grid.
Call or text 512-387-4232 or visit nomicpower.com. Follow on Instagram at Nomic Power for updates.
Turnkey service including design, plumbing, electrical, and permits.
They even offer set-it-and-forget-it maintenance plans. Nomic Power Solutions.
Protect your home. Protect your family. Stay ready.
This show is brought to you in part by the Mallet Integrity Team, serving Dripping Springs, Austin, and the surrounding areas of Central Texas since 2004. When you need the best real estate advice and service, give them a call at 512-829-2062 or email them at malletintegrityteam.com.
You know you like us, so go now to Apple Podcast or Spotify and leave us a review. Why don't ya? We love your feedback and comments. Email us at malletandmichelle@gmail.com.
Thanks for putting up with us.